Hey everybody, welcome to this edition of Homegrown Church. Um, this is it, people. This is the last chapter of Mark, and who knows what's going to happen next. But as we do, updates. um, let's do health first. Health has been okay. Nothing too drastic change-wise. Ministry-wise, not so much me, but just the other day, a really great man of the faith passed away, and somebody that I've met. I didn't know him well. I know his son well, but I didn't know this man well. But the little that I did know about him, he was very impressive. Dr. Jesse Miranda, and he recently passed away. And it was very quick. I don't know a lot of the details of it. In fact, I don't really know any details. All I know is that he was sick, and then suddenly he passed away. That's really all I know. But the impact that he left on me, especially, was that from what I know about him, he was a man that went through and faced a lot of adversity, and through really the Holy Spirit conquered a lot of that adversity and did a lot of amazing things, and did a lot of amazing things for his community, and his community, I could even say at large. And he's a guy that really stressed education, and he was a role model for a lot of people. I wish I would have got to hear him speak more and got to know him a little better, but yeah, he will be missed, right? So anyway, like I said, this is the end of Mark. Now, what are we going to do next? I really don't know. And it's really all come down to this, because this is what I knew to do, and now I don't really have the direction, and I've been praying for direction. I've been asking others to pray for me for direction. I thought I had an idea of something that I wanted to do next, and then as I kind of worked with it and thought about it and prayed about it, I don't think that's the right thing. But this is what I am going to do. And I'm probably going to post this in other places too. If there are things out there, either books, biblical books, or topics or things that you want teaching on, let me know what those things are. And my style is called expository. I deal with the book. We go chapter by chapter, verse by verse. I don't do a lot of topical. I don't like to do it unless I really feel led to do it. And I would rather get into what the Word says and be honest to that than do topical things and get more like opinions, even if they're biblically based. I want the Word to speak for itself, but I will do it if there are things that people want to learn about or they're not sure about. So if there are, leave a comment. Either if you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment or you can leave a comment on Facebook where I always post these, and let me know if there are things or a certain book that you want taught. I can tell you this. I am more equipped to teach you things from the New Testament only because I have more resources for the New Testament, I should say. I have Old Testament resources. I just don't have that many, depending on the book. But whatever you want, I can. If I feel that it's the right thing to do, I'll try to make it work. Okay. So pray about that. I don't know if we're gonna have a video next week because I don't really know what we're gonna do. So it's all come down to this, and we're gonna be in chapter 16. We're gonna be reading verses 1 through 8. Now, if you're looking in your Bible and you see, well, Mike, there is 20 verses. Well, I'm gonna explain at the end why we're only working up to verse 8. All right? And it's very, I feel, important to our story. Okay? It's not just because I don't want to do the rest. I think there's a reason. Okay? And we'll get to that. Okay? Now, our story, before we start reading, remember, it's picking up. Jesus has died and he's been buried. There's kind of been a gap. There was a Sabbath gap. And our story picks up very early on Sunday morning following the death of Jesus and his burial on Friday. Okay, so we're in Mark 16, verse 1. We're going to read it. If you want to read with me, please feel free to do so. If you just want to listen, that's fine. It says this, though. When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go to anoint Jesus' body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they were on their way to the tomb, and they asked each other, "Who will roll the stone away from the entrance of the tomb?" But when they looked up, they saw that the stone, which was very large, had been rolled away. As they entered the tomb, they saw a young man dressed in a white robe sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. "Don't be alarmed," he said. "You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they laid him. But go, tell his disciples and Peter, he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you." Trembling and bewildered, the women went out and fled from the tomb. They said nothing to anyone because they were afraid. All right, so pretty quick, but some great news. And the darkness that we had experienced before has suddenly lifted. And we're going to pray like we do and then get into it, okay? So, Lord Jesus, we thank you that you are alive. You are risen. You are no longer in the grave. That you were formerly there and you were there for us. And now you're alive for us. And even in this triumphal moment, you remember those of us that need a special touch. You remember those of us that need a personal invitation. And that's all of us, really. And Lord, I thank you so much for the thing that you're doing. Lord, I don't know where Homegrown Church is going to go. I don't know where it's going to end up. I don't know anything. But what I do know is that we're going to be faithful to the things that you want, however that may be, whatever that looks like. And we'll just be obedient to following your lead. And we just need a touch from your spirit right now to give us the wisdom and the guidance into what to do next. because the job isn't over. And Lord, your rising shows that our job isn't over, that there is nothing that can hold us back, not even death, not the grave. Lord, nothing can stop us. We have a plan and a purpose to fulfill that you gave us. And Lord, we thank you for that. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so if you remember, 3 of the women who were at the crucifixion, okay, the Marys and Salome, remember we talked about this last time, they've now witnessed not only Jesus dying, they knew where he was buried, and now they go and he's not there. Okay, they're seeing proof of the resurrection, right? And they come to bring spices to anoint Jesus. Now, let's talk about this for a second here, okay? This is not for preservation. This is not for preserving the body. Jews don't practice embalming. This is an act of love and devotion to reduce the stench of the decomposing body, right? Now, normally, this act would have been done before the burial, but remember, they were in a rush. Okay, the Sabbath was coming. There was no place for him outside of the common grave for criminals. So Joseph of Arimathea puts him in what we know to be his own unused tomb. Okay, now, how did this work? Well, they would take these spices and they would make a mixture and they would pour it on the body inside, wrapped up in the linen cloth. Okay? And then there was like a water thing. It was a whole thing. Okay? Now, okay, we'll talk about this. The reasoning for this is you have to understand that in Judaism, and especially in this time, what they would do is that they would have to get these bodies kind of cleaned up and wrapped up because of the weather. They would decompose and stink really quick, okay? And then what would happen is that in that wrapping, the body would decompose down to bones. So what they would do is these bones were collected in the cloth, and then about a year later, family members would come, and they would collect the bones, and they put them in this little box on an ossuary. And then the ossuaries would usually in the family tombs, this is more for people that had money, they would be put up kind of like in a wall. Okay, so like the whole family would be in there, kind of like a mausoleum today, except there's not a whole body in there or cremated. It's bones, okay, just the bones, right? Now, that's their thinking. Their thinking is on this natural, physical thing, something they've probably experienced with other relatives in the past, right? Now, this shows that they love Jesus, okay? And they're doing this out of an act of love for him. But this isn't real Christian faith, okay? Our faith has to lie and must be placed in that Jesus is not dead. Jesus is alive. That's where our faith has to be. Now remember, he's told them a bunch of times, and they've heard the conversations. They've probably heard it more than most. Okay? And this whole idea about him resurrecting, and yeah, there's going to be a resurrection at the end, but this is like a special kind of thing. They just didn't get it. It didn't make sense to them, right? Um, so there is a faith transmission, a faith transition better, that has to take place. The people that believed in Jesus, that followed Jesus, that loved Jesus, their faith has to now make a transformation from before he dies to now when he's resurrected. Okay? And true saving faith comes by that. Okay? By having faith in that fact. Okay? Now, back to the story. Very early it says, on the first day, they went to the tomb. Now, there's some discrepancy about time and things like that, but basically what it boils down to is as soon as there's light enough for them to see, they make their way. Now, we do know on the time that merchants, these guys are usually up before the sun, and they're preparing their items and their stalls and things like that to sell. So women are the ones that get up, they get the water early, they go to the marketplace to get what they need, and they're trying to beat the heat, right? So it's not unusual for them to be up like this. And this is how they're able to buy the spices before they go to the tomb. They get up, they go to the merchants early, they get what they need, and they go down to the tomb. Now, as they're going, their immediate concern amongst each other is, oh shoot, who's going to move the stone out of the entrance of the tomb? Now, we talked about this a little bit last time, the shape of the stone. And now, remember, it's down, rolled into a sloped groove. Okay, so it's very hard to move being down like that. In fact, it took many men to move the stone. Now, the reason for this is to keep grave robbers out. The spices that were brought, and these could be worth a lot of money. So sometimes robbers would go into graves and they'd steal stuff, or sometimes they would kind of pirate the grave. They would throw out the body that was in there and put somebody else in there and then cover it back up. So Joseph knows this. That's why he has the tomb sealed up the way that he does. And their concern shows that this whole, they're about to face something. They're about to come face to face with something here that is going to change the universe. And they're stuck on earthly problems. They just, like really everybody else, they've missed what Jesus has been talking about all this time, right? And they are stuck in these human problems, and God has already provided a solution for the problem, okay? Their focus needs to be on the big picture here of what just happened. Jesus, who was dead, is now alive, okay? They're worried about a heavy stone. God needs their attention in other places. And really, this is kind of a lesson for us. God is trying to get our attention on kind of the bigger picture of things a lot of times, and we're stuck on stones. We're stuck on heavy objects. God knows how to deal with the rocks. God knows how to deal with the heavy stones. He knows how to deal with the physical things. If you're going to focus on the spiritual things that God has you focusing on, those stones in life are going to be taken care of. Don't worry about that. Okay? Now, their concerns are put to rest when they get there and they see that the stone is already rolled away. Mark doesn't say how the stone was moved. He just says it's there. Now, remember, Mark omits a lot of details. He's the Cliff Notes version. His writing style is like, you guys really already know the story. I'm trying to make a point about the story. Okay? And they enter and they see an angel. Well, Mark doesn't say it's an angel. Mark says it's a man, but it's something that's kind of inferred. What's interesting is I wonder, this is just kind of my thinking from my study, I wonder if they actually knew it was an angel. My guess would be the shock of seeing the stone moved and seeing no body and seeing this person, someone that looked like a person. It could have very well been that in their minds they just think that they're talking to some man. I think because of where their faith was, they might not have seen an angel and just seen a man. And maybe that's why Mark chooses the words. And even in the Greek, the word is a young man. It's not an angel or a messenger. It's not the typical language. So I'm wondering if they thought they were just talking to some man, right? And it says when they see all this that they are alarmed or bewildered. Now, remember, in our whole study of Mark, people, when they come in contact with the things that Jesus has done, they are bewildered. They're in awe, amazement. This is a theme in Mark. And they are kind of back in that place where we usually see his male disciples of, they just don't get it. They're in awe of it. But they're bewildered. It doesn't make sense. They don't understand. So they really don't know what's going on, right? Now, let me say this. The stone is rolled away in order to prove the resurrection happened, not to make it happen. Okay? The angel didn't have to come down and move the stone so that Jesus could get out. Right? Jesus had the ability to get out without the stone rolled. Now, the scripture is not clear, okay, how Jesus gets out of the tomb. I'm guessing he just walks out, but I wasn't there. I don't know. But the bigger point that's trying to be made here is that the stone is rolled away, the tomb is empty, and that is the evidence. There are no bones. There is no dead body. Okay, there is no grave site for Jesus. He is alive. That is the big picture point. He used to be here. He's not here anymore. Okay? So that's why the stone is rolled away. It's our proof. Right? Now this young man, angel, he can tell the women are alarmed, and he tells them not to be. Okay, remember that theme of bewilderment? He tells them, don't be that way. Okay, he knows who they're looking for, and he tells them, right? But now a question has arisen for them, right? He tells them, look, he's not here. This is where he was, right? The question is, well, where is he? Okay, there's no body here. So his answer to them is, he's risen. He's not here. This is where he used to be, right? This is God's answer to their question. Where is he? See, the good news is that he's risen, right? Where isn't he? He's everywhere now, right? But God is answering them on a level that I don't think that they understood right at that moment. This announcement of the resurrection, this good news message. And we're going to see that they really don't understand what's being told to them. Okay? Now, the angel tells them something interesting here. The angel tells them something interesting, and he says, okay, he's risen, right? He's not here. Now go and tell the disciples and Peter. He explicitly names Peter. Now God knows that because of what Peter did, he needs a special touch. He needed to know he wasn't excluded from the group. He needed to know that he was loved. He needed to know that he was forgiven. So he names that. And I think this is Mark's way of telling the story of Peter's restoration without having to tell the entire story. And that is especially so because I believe that Peter had a great influence over what was written in this gospel. And I also think that because such an emphasis was made about Peter's denial, which we went over a few weeks ago, that there needed to be a conclusion to that. And this is Mark's way of concluding it, right? Now, with that message to go and tell the disciples, these women would be the first witnesses of the resurrection. Now, let me just talk about something quickly here. Right? If I'm Jesus, if I'm God, the first people that I'm either showing myself to or telling about what's happened is not women. I'm not telling them. Now, there's a reason. In this day and age, women, we've realized, they don't really get a say. They don't have any kind of validity to what they say, right? And this is the greatest announcement in the history of the cosmos, and it given to people whose testimony cannot be believed, even in court. This is the good news, and it's going to people who are not to be believed. That is insane. And it shows how Jesus, especially, views women, and now how God has redeemed women where they had been under this curse of the law and subjugated to like the second-class status. How his redemption redeems them back to better than things were in the garden, right? It's just so interesting that he does it this way. Now, they hear all this, they get the message, they're told what to do, and the scripture says they're trembling and bewildered. Again, that theme of they don't know what to do, they don't understand, it doesn't make sense, it's too much for them to handle. And so what do? Well, they act very much like Jesus' male disciples. They flee and they tell no one. What is crazy about this is that all through this book, especially in the beginning, it's Jesus always tell people, be quiet, don't tell people, don't let people know who I am, the time has not yet come, blah, blah, blah. Now the time's come, and they have the chance to finally come out and tell people who Jesus is, and they're quiet. I mean, isn't that human nature? When you finally get the opportunity to do something, and something like this, and they don't do it. They stay quiet. I really honestly think that the full ramification of what they had been given was not understood. I don't think, and this is not because they're women or because they're dull, I just think they don't have the theological understanding, and their minds were not open yet by the Spirit to understand everything that Jesus had told them. They just were in a place where they didn't get it. It probably would have been a similar thing if men had been there first. I'm pretty sure about that. Okay? So that's it. That's 8 verses. And you might be saying, well, in my Bible, there's more. Well, yes, and I'm going to explain that to you, okay? So let's answer this question first. Why does Mark in the book here? Well, there's a lot of theories, okay? Some think that this is intentional. Some think that this isn't really the end, but the real ending was somehow lost in time, lost to the copyists. We do know for a fact that verses 9 to 20 are not written by Mark. And we know that because of the language. And what probably happened there was that the early church fathers did not like the ending here, because this is really not the big triumphal resurrection story that they wanted. So it was more was added, so they kind of pull from other places and they create this kind of ending conclusion for Mark. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion. Okay, now I could be wrong. This is what I think. Mark leaves his readers with the same call and decision that the women have at the end of the story. What do I mean by that? But remember, we've talked about this a lot. Mark is writing to this persecuted Roman church, and he's giving them an option. These guys know the story of Jesus. If they didn't, they wouldn't be believers. They know that Jesus is alive. Probably the reason why Mark doesn't go into the detail of it, because the story isn't so much to tell them that Jesus is alive, something that they already know. It was probably to give them more insight into the life of Jesus, to answer questions that they had, but also to help reassure them that they are doing better than the people that were with Jesus when he was alive, because they're doing things that those people never did. Okay? But he's leaving them with this decision. You know that Jesus is alive, so you have an option. You can either be quiet about it and tell nobody, or you can go tell people. That's what I think he ends where he does, and it ends so abruptly. Ending abruptly is also, in the ancient world, not uncommon in writing. Okay? Now, gospel writing, this sort of narrative writing, is its own unique style, but it's not unheard of in the Greek-speaking world to end something like this. Now, the other verses, are they bad? No. Are they not truthful? No, they are truthful. They're pulled from the other gospel accounts, but I don't think that they're needed, because it's not providing the thematic type ending that Mark had in mind. Okay? He's making a point, like I said, in this abrupt ending, and it works. Okay? And like I said, one of those things that he's trying to point out is that these people that are being persecuted, that are doing the Lord's work, are better off than those who knew Jesus personally and face to face, because despite the persecution, they are still giving the good news. These people were unashamed, unafraid, and were out giving the gospel. I mean, they are in the lion's den doing this, right? Now, let's talk about this. just for a minute here in terms of Mark. What does the resurrection accomplish for us? Well, Mark is not Paul, and he's not this kind of a deep theologian who's going to go into all the intricacies of what the cross and resurrection do. But if we remember Mark's telling of the Last Supper and about how the broken body and the blood poured out, okay, this all had to be done so that we are cleansed, reconciled back to God, but that Jesus rises from the dead. We've raised with him. And we were once dead in our trespasses. We are now alive with him. We know that we're seated with him in heavenly places. That because of his rising and going away, he sends his Spirit. That means that he's with us forever. He never leaves us or forsakes us. It's the power of our salvation along with the power to do the work he's called us to do, right? And it allows us to have that relationship with him. That's why we need the resurrection. We need the resurrection to have life in him and to have him be with us, okay? Now that has more to do with the ascension and then later restoring of the Spirit. But there cannot be that unless there's a resurrection. The resurrection defeats death, it defeats the grave, and it promises us life. If Jesus is alive and we're in him, then we are alive. And life in him is full, abundant life where we can actually be fully alive. We were once dead in our trespasses, but now we're alive in him, right? Now, it boils down to this, and I believe that this is the story and the point that Mark was trying to get at. Now that you know the good news, you know who Jesus is, you know what he did, and you know that he's alive, what are you going to do with him? It's the charge that the angel gave to the women. I believe it's the charge that Mark is giving to his original readers, and it's the charge, I believe, that the book gives to us today. What are you going to do now that Jesus is alive and you know it? What are you going to do with that news? Are you going to be quiet and tell nobody and be in fear and trembling? Or are you going to tell the people that he tells you to tell? It's interesting that he gives them a direct group of people to go to, the disciples and Peter. Doesn't say yet go into all the world and all that. No great commission yet. And for Mark there isn't. But it's this idea of go and tell these people that I've directed you to tell. Okay? That's how it works. So are you going to be obedient or not? And it all comes down to that. Because you know the truth, you know the good news, and you know the power that is in that. Okay? So that's Mark. We did the whole thing, 16 chapters, and it was a lot. It's taken us, I don't even know how long. I have to go back and figure out how many months this took. But we did it. We finished one whole book together. And where we go from here, I don't know. I know that we will go with the Lord. And just what that looks like, I don't know. But let's pray. And then we'll figure out what goes from there. But pray for me so that the Lord directs me in things that we need to do next. Okay? Lord Jesus, we thank you so much that you are alive. You who are dead, you're alive now and alive forever. There's no more getting rid of you. There's no more going back to the grave. There's no more anything. And Lord, this is our proof that you're God, and you're a God unlike all the others that men have concocted in the world, because we can find their bones, we can find their graves, but there's nothing. What remains is the Spirit that you give us, that we can be like you, that it transforms us into your likeness. And God, we thank you so much for that, Lord. Send your spirit and a fresh anointing of it on us right now, Jesus, that we would have new experiences of you. God, open our hearts and minds and our ears to the things that you have to say to us. Bless those that hear this, God. And Lord, let them know that they are faced with a task now. And that task is, you know the good news. What are you going to do with it? Lord, I pray that as they share it, you would bless them, you would give them strength by your spirit, and that people would just be touched in knowing the things that you've done for them. And we say all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, God bless you guys. Pray for me. Leave your comments of the things that we talked about at the very beginning. And I don't know when, but I will see you again. And I don't know what the context of that is going to look like, but I'll be around. So feel free to get in contact with me. So God bless you guys, and we'll see you again somewhere in the future. Maybe next week, maybe further down, who knows? But we'll be seeing you. God bless.